to be here and see so many people here, and a lot of familiar faces as well. I'd like to start out by saying that, like Giles, I wish it weren't necessary for me to be here at all. I wish it weren't necessary for there to be an organisation called WATCH, which stands for Women in the Church, and it's been going since 1996. Started up because when the movement for the ordination of women ended, it was a single issue campaigning group. In 1994, the year all the women deacons who'd been waiting were ordained, there was a lull, and the Mo secretary, Jenny Standage, who's here and holds the memory of so much of what has gone on for women and the church, and I were sort of left stranded, and we had to start something else up. So we shouldn't be here, and I hope one day we won't have to exist. So where are we in the struggle for women bishops in the Church of England? Well, if you talk to me, I'll tell you that we're in an amazing place. We're on the brink of preparing legislation for women to be allowed to be bishops, and we're also going to have that go through Synod now. Synod has not once, not twice, but 3 times affirmed its desire to have its episcopate open to women. And the last time it did that was this past July. And so we're very nearly there. For you historians out there, we're almost there. This is the last sprint up to the finish line. And of course, the finish line is in itself another starting line, because we really don't see getting women as bishops as some sort of nirvana end goal. It's only the beginning of something else. It's only achieving what I call is institutional parity with men, because when women can be bishops, then in institutional terms, women and men will be the same. Except, if you talk to a few other people, this is what you might hear. I don't know if any of you see a magazine called New Directions. It's put out by the traditionalist Catholic group called Forward in Faith, who have joined together with the conservative evangelical group called Reform, and they produce this magazine. And I have to tell you, before I read this particular headline, which refers to the vote on the 7th of July 2008 in General Synod, where we said yes for the 3rd time, we want women as bishops. I'd like to describe the last 2 covers of the magazine. I didn't bring them because it's hard for you in the back row to see, but the image of this huge, bloodthirsty, slavering crocodile gobbling up traditionalist bishops with blood spurting out, drawn, sort of sketched, but bright red blood. And it's a particularly violent and I found it a rather disturbing image. But this cover after the July Synod is a cover of happy, smiling children's faces. But this is the headline that refers to the debate on women bishops. A future, reasons for being cheerful after the axe has fallen. And this is not the first time that imagery of an axe has been used. I was there on General Synod. I've been a member of General Synod for 18 years now. And I was there on the 11th of November 1992. And there was a man called Peter Geldard. And he left the Church of England after that vote back in 1992. And he gave a most passionate speech about why the church must not take this decision. And one of the images he used in that speech was about woodmen and the axe to the tree. Again, an image of violence and actually destruction of a living thing. And some of you may also remember the same type of imagery used by the Bishop of London when he talked about if we have women as priests, we will have a virus in the bloodstream of the church, as if women were not already part of the bloodstream, a healthy part of it, that made it whole and healthy, but actually women priests would actually introduce a virus. And of course you'll know, and as Monica Furlong pointed out in her wonderful book, A Dangerous Delight, about power in the church, is that he made this comment right as the public, we were all becoming aware of the AIDS epidemic. So what I want to say tonight is that we're nearly there, but religion is not and has never been a neutral place for women. And it still isn't. The headline, reasons for being cheerful after the axe has fallen. Now you say, well, that is only the perspective of those who don't want to go forward. Let's focus for a moment on where we are and what the vote achieved in July. So I'll tell you just a bit about where we are in the General Synod and what motion was passed, and then the slightly wider context, and look ahead into the future about what lies ahead of us and what are some of the still challenges that lie ahead of us. Otherwise, if it had all been as victorious and complete as some of the media reports were, women bishops and victory and all that, we could all go home. I have to say, it's also wonderful that Watch has affiliated with Inclusive Church several years ago, but there is still, we're inclusive by degrees and impartially. We're impartially and imperfectly inclusive, because I have to say, there's still members of Watch, good, faithful, very passionate members of Watch, who believe passionately in women being included fully in the ordained and lay ministries in the Church of England, who cannot walk with the rest of some of those bodies associated with Inclusive Church that Giles read out. So we're all in different places, and sometimes, particularly in the build-up to Lambeth, we became aware of those areas, not where we overlapped as much, but also where there was some dissonance. And so within Inclusive Church and those groups affiliated, we still have discussions, and we still are growing and working towards an understanding of what it does mean to be inclusive. And it's a very live thing, and we haven't been here before, and we don't have a blueprint, and we don't know what it will be like to be Christians, brothers and sisters together in Christ, in a church that is fully inclusive. And that's part of our greatest challenge, I believe, is to try to create a vision or understand God's vision of what it might be like. What would it feel like to be in a church that was fully inclusive, where you didn't have to put on the different masks as you went into different rooms, and who's safe to talk to about this subject, and who do you cannot talk about that, but you can talk about that, and all sorts of things. So it's a very challenging time for us all.